We're continuing the Onslaught build series here on the channel, going over some of the best builds to take into a Legend Onslaught to help you clear that 50 wave. And in today's video, we are back on the Strand Warlock. If you're a Hunter or Titan, don't worry, we already have a couple builds here on the channel that you can utilize in Onslaught and some other Warlock ones as well. So if you don't want to miss out on any other builds and Destiny 2 content, be sure to subscribe. Let's not waste any time and dive right into it. I really like Strand Warlock for Onslaught, especially this season with Horde Shuttle and the Artifact, and with the exotic we're going to be using, which is the Swarmers. Destroying a Tangle spawns a Threadling, and your Threadlings unravel targets that they damage. So pretty much our Threadlings can actually add that unravel buff, which is going to help us a lot with some of the Artifact perks. And it's just going to be insane the amount of Threadlings that we're going to be able to produce. Under the Brewweaver subclass, obviously the Super Needle Storm, it's really good for that boss DPS and can spawn those Threadlings again. It'll be good to wipe out pretty much anything that's on the field. But with our abilities, I'm rocking the Healing Rift, Burst Glide, Arcane Needle, which is the melee we can have 3 of, and it can unravel targets. And for the grenade, I want to give you a couple options. First up, if you want to use the grapple, that is totally fine. Now, the grapple will allow you to have that grapple melee and it can unravel targets. And if you pair this with the aspect Mindspun Invocation, your grapple melee will spawn 3 Threadling eggs, so we can actually have more Threadlings on the field just from the grapple melee. Now, I will say though, in Onslaught, obviously we have those rounds with some Exploder Shanks and some Curse Thrall, so this sometimes is not the best thing to use with this, but it is an option. Another option is going to be the Shackle Grenade, which again you can toss out, it'll suspend targets and whatnot, but the main thing is pairing this with Mindspun Invocation again, because you can actually consume the grenade to give yourself Weaver's Trance, and then any final blows while you have Weaver's Trance will create a suspending detonation, so the targets around that will become suspended. This is actually the combo that you use when using the Necrotic Grips with Thorn or Osteostriga, because you can spread the poison and spread the suspend. It's the same thing here, just using regular weapons and Threadlings. It's still a very good option for crowd control. And obviously the last grenade is the Threadling Grenade, which again, you can just toss it out. It'll spawn 3 Threadlings, and again, that's going to be good because we can have some unravel on the field from those guys. And again, pairing that with Mindspun Invocation, you can actually consume them and get 5 perched Threadlings, which I don't really like with the setup, so I would recommend switching this out for something like Weaver's Call. So when you cast your Rift, you can actually send out more Threadlings, and again, if there's any targets near you, you're in a bad situation, again, those Threadlings can go out and attack those enemies. Now, I did talk about 2 aspects already, but one of the ones that I like in this setup is the Wanderer. So tangles you throw out attach to targets and detonate into a suspending burst. Destroying a tangle creates a suspending burst after a short delay, and Threadling final blows create a tangle. Again, when you destroy a tangle, it'll also spawn Threadlings because of the Swarmers, so I really like the Wanderer here. Whether you shoot the tangle or throw it at a champion or enemies or whatever, you can actually suspend them, so this can be good for stopping those unstoppable champions. But to be honest, there's so many combinations here that you can use. Again, having Mindspun Invocation in the second slot or Weaver's Call. Even if you wanted to use Weave Walk, you totally can. You use your inner dodge, it consumes melee, you get perched Threadlings and damage resistance. I don't like playing super passive, so that's why I don't really use Weave Walk. But again, I do recommend the Wander in either Mindspun or Weaver's Call, depending on the grenades that I mentioned. For Fragments, there's 3 big ones and one that you can actually switch out for whatever you like. The first one is Thread of Generation. Dealing damage generates grenade energy. It's a -10 to Discipline. Basically, any damage that we deal is going to give us our grenade back faster. Next, Thread of Warding. This is a big one. Picking up an Orb of Power grants Woven Mail. It's a -10 to Resilience. Woven Mail gives you extra damage resistance on top of your 100 Resilience, so this one is highly needed. Another one is Thread of Evolution. Threadlings travel farther and deal additional damage. It's a +10 to Intellect. If you didn't know, like a season ago, Threadlings actually got buffed significantly in PvE, so they deal some pretty solid damage here. And in the final column, we do have a couple of options. I do like Thread of Fury. So damaging targets with the tangle grants melee energy. It's a -10 to strength. So basically, as long as a tangle hits some targets, we can get our melees back faster, which means we can proc more unravel. An option when pairing the Shackle Grenade with Mindspun Invocation is Thread of Mind. So defeating suspended targets grants class ability energy. So as long as you defeat those targets in the air while they're suspended, you can get your Healing Rift back faster, or you can switch this out for something like Thread of Wisdom. So defeating suspended targets creates an Orb of Power, which again, that's going to be good for you and the team. The last option I'll recommend is Thread of Continuity. So suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets have an increased duration. So basically, any strand debuff has a longer duration, which can be good overall. Again, you have multiple options here, so just pick the one that you like using and go for it. There are plenty of combinations you can use, so definitely test some stuff out before you dive into Legend Onslaught. Under the Artifact, we have 2 interesting strand ones. First up being Unraveling Orb. So when you pick up an Orb of Power, it grants your strand weapons unraveling rounds, which can cause unravel and pop anti-barrier champions. But the big one here is Horde Shuttle, so damaging unravel targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a threadling. And the amount of unravel we're going to have on the field with our melee, with any threadlings that spawn, with our weapons from unraveling orbs, it's going to be so much unravel that when you damage a target, again, it doesn't even have to be a kill. As long as you damage a target, it has a high chance of spawning a threadling from what I've seen. And again, our threadlings can reproc unravel because of the swarmers. So we essentially have an unlimited threadling machine as long as there's some targets on the field. Pairing that with the solar portion of the artifact, definitely toss on flame fiber and free so we can use the solar strand siphon mod on the helmet. Highly recommend flint striker. So if we get some rapid solar weapon precision hits and final blows, we will be radiant, which again, radiant can pop those anti-barrier champions again. But with Radiant, we're going to get number 1, Kindling Trigger. So Radiant causes solar weapons to apply Scorch to unscorched combatants. And with Torch while we're Radiant, we're going to deal increased weapon damage to combatants affected by Strand and Stasis debuffs. And with the amount of Unravel on the field from everything that I mentioned before, weapons and abilities, as long as we're Radiant, that is free bonus weapon damage. I do like using rockets here, so definitely Overload Rocket is going to be good for those Overload champs that spawn in. And then having something like Argent Ordnance is pretty solid. Yes, it'll consume an armor charge, but you get increased damage and reload speed for your rocket launcher, which is pretty good. Sometimes I'll switch out Argent Ordnance for Raised Precision. So while I'm Radiant, again, from Flint Striker, Solar Precision Final Blows cause combatants to ignite. That is a free ignition, which means more crowd control. Again, it's depending on the weapon. Like, if I'm using something like Sunshot, I would definitely opt for something like Argent Ordnance because the amount of Scorch spread with Sunshot is fantastic. But if I'm using a different weapon that can only cause Incandescent, I definitely want to toss on Raised Precision. And lastly, in the bottom row, go ahead and toss on Wished into Being. So while your super is nearly fully charged, ability Final Blows will spawn Orbs of Power. For stats to focus on, big one here is Resilience. We talk about every video, try to have tier 10, 100 Resilience. It's going to give you a 30% damage reduction, which we definitely want in something like Legend Onslaught. Next, I would focus on Discipline. Discipline is tied to how fast we can get that grenade back, and no matter which one you're using, we definitely want that back as quickly as possible for the utility. After that, you could focus on Intellect for super or Strength for your melee, but again, the two big ones here are Resilience and Discipline. For armor mods, starting with the helmet here, again, like I said, I'm putting on Solar Strand Dual Siphon, so any Rapid Solar and Strand Weapon Final Blows will create Orbs of Power. Next, I do like Heavy Ammo Finder with Heavy Ammo Scout, so I can give myself heavy ammo and give my teammates some heavy ammo as well. We definitely want that as much as possible in Onslaught. For our gauntlets, I personally like double impact induction with focusing strike, so when I deal damage with my powered melee, it reduces my grenade cooldown and reduces my class ability, so I can get that back faster. You could substitute in something like momentum transfer, so causing damage with the grenade is going to reduce your melee cooldown, but to be honest, I like this setup. You can definitely mess around with it if you'd like. On the chest piece, I'm opting for Harmonic Reserve so I can get more ammo for my Strand weapons. I am going to be using a Strand Special, and I want as much ammo for that thing as possible. I'm also using Arc and Void Resistance, but you can switch these out depending on the burn that day. I would also look into Solar Reserves as well in case you want more ammo for your heavy weapon. On the boots, I'm rocking Recuperation, so I get health back each time I pick up an Orb of Power. This is really the only way we can heal ourselves with this build. We already have good damage resistance with 100 Resilience and Woven Mail, but we definitely want health back as much as possible. Then I'm also rocking Strand and Solar Weapon Surge. So my Strand and Solar Weapons will gain a small bonus to damage while I have any armor charge. Your armor charge now decays over time. Essentially, when you pick up Orbs of Power, you'll gain armor charges. With this build, you can have a maximum of 3. And with any of these blue mods, that armor charge will now last 10 seconds, which means at 3 armor charges, we have 30 seconds of this bonus weapon damage. If you did want to switch it out for double solar, you totally can, but I just like having some bonus damage for both my weapon types across the board. Lastly, on the class item, I like time dilation, so your decaying armor charge has a longer duration, so that 10 seconds that I mentioned actually gets bumped up to 15 seconds, so at 3 armor charges, we get 45 seconds of that bonus weapon damage. Then I'm rocking Double Bomber, so when I use my class ability, it actually reduces my grenade cooldown. For your weapon options, in the primary slot, like I said, I would recommend a Strand special weapon. If you can craft the Scatter Signal from Riven this season, this thing is fantastic. I have Enhanced Slice and Controlled Burst, so it's going to be really good for that single target damage. Legend Onslaught, we're just melting higher tier enemies with this thing. But if you want something for more crowd control, Tusk of the Board. This is the Iron Banner Strand wave frame that could come with the per chain reaction. So we're just blowing up everything. Plus, if we get the unraveling rounds from picking up an orb, Horde Shuttle can proc from the chain reaction explosion, which means this thing can essentially have hatchling on it on top of chain reaction. So I really like this thing. Basically, any Strand special weapon will work. These are just the 2 that I would recommend. In the energy slot, I would recommend a Solar Primary. Sunshot is easily my favorite to use here. It's fantastic for ad control. It's an exotic, so it does get a bump to damage with an update a couple updates ago. Just the ad clear potential with this thing is absolutely nuts. And hand cannons can also stop unstoppable champions this season. But if you didn't want to use this, again, any solar primary that can come with the perk Incandescent will definitely work. Again, I have this Epichal integration here. Again, it's a hand cannon. We can stop unstops. We have Incandescent. Again, if I'm Radiant, I could take off Argent Ornus, put on Raised Precision. So now that I'm scorching and igniting everything on the field, it's fantastic. If you wanted Pulse Rifle at Hortative, Heal Clip Incandescent. Same thing with the Abyss Defiant. This is an auto rifle. Again, Heal Clip Incandescent. Callus Mini Tool as well. I don't have it on here, but basically any solar primary with Incandescent will work with this build, in my opinion. And lastly, in the heavy slot, you can also use your favorite solar heavy weapon here. Again, I would recommend a rocket launcher. I have this Apex Predator that's crafted, Recon Bait and Switch. Again, it's going to be good for that boss damage. And again, we can stop those overload champs with the rocket launcher. But to be honest, any rocket will work. If you didn't want to use Sunshot here, I would highly recommend using Gallahorn. Yes, Gallahorn won't have the greatest single target damage, but the ad clear potential with this thing is just absolutely disgusting. I really like Gallahorn for Onslaught for that purpose in particular. Again, you could use something like Dragon's Breath as well. It's good for ad clear and single target damage as well. But to be honest, any solar heavy weapon will work here. I would just recommend trying to have a good weapon combination to where you can handle every type of champion, depending on whether it's Hive or Fallen. I'll be totally honest here, I at least make a Swarmers build once a season because the artifact always has some sort of cool bonus for Strand, and I think for Warlock this time around, it is perfect with Horde Shuttle. Again, any threadlings that we have is going to cause Unravel, and again with Horde Shuttle, if we damage Unravel targets, that's more threadlings on the field, and with this setup, with whatever you use, whether you use the Shackle Grenade to consume it for Weaver's Trance, the Grapple, the Threadling Grenade, whatever you decide to use for the setup, the main thing is as long as you deal some initial damage with any type of ability, you're going to have a million threadlings on the field by the time the wave is up. And again, with the weapons, the main thing with them is to handle champions, do some damage, and, you know, your primary, take out ads like crazy. With Sunshot, again, as long as the target's damaged with Unravel, they can blow up from Sunshot, spread some Scorch around, and also proc another Threadling to spawn on the field, which can cause more Unravel. As you can tell from the clips here, I was using the Threadling Grenade. I was just tossing it out with the amount of damage I was doing with everything. I could toss out a couple of them, and whenever a Tormentor came up or a high-value target or something like that, I would use the Super, I would use, you know, my Heavy and all that. It's just the Swarmers this season paired with Horde Shuttle and the Artifact, and also with Torch giving us that bonus damage. There's really no downside to this setup. As long as your team has solid survivability, like let's say you already have a Warlock on your team, this build will be a great addition for crowd control. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Onslaught Swarmers Warlock build. Let me know you guys think in the comments. I'm actually going to put the dim link for this build in the description. So if you want to copy everything that I'm using, down to the subclass, the armor mods, the weapons, even the drip if you like. Again, I try to make my Guardians look fairly decent, something that matches the theme of the build. So if you want to copy all that stuff, again, you can do so in the dim link. Test out for yourself and let me know what you think. If there's something that you like using on this build, whether it's something under the subclass, an armor mod, a weapon, definitely let me know in the comments. In any event, if what you saw is valuable or entertaining to you, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming Onslaught builds I'm going to be dropping on the channel. If you didn't know, we live stream here on YouTube, but also on Twitch and TikTok as well. So if you want help with Legend Onslaught, with the Whisper mission, with 0 Hour, anything that has to deal with this Into the Light event, we're definitely going to be carrying people throughout the entirety of the event. So if you do want some help, hop in the chat. We'll get you in the queue. But if you want to be proactive, join my Discord. That's where people are going to be chatting about Destiny 2, looking for groups. I made an Onslaught LFG role, so if you're looking to do Onslaught and get some other people in to help you, again, that's going to be a really good way to do that. Lastly, if you want to help support the channel even more so I can continue making content for you guys, you can look into becoming a member. If you don't know what a membership is essentially like a Twitch subscription, but it's cheaper than a Twitch subscription, hilariously enough. In any event, you're going to get access to exclusive emotes, monthly badges, and other cool things here on the channel, like early access to every single one of my videos. So if you want more information, all you have to do is press the join button next subscribe, and that'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next one.